Hey guys, welcome back to The Bright Side. Macy here, The Bright Side Girl. Today we're going to be doing my January wrap-up. I had a really great reading month in January, despite it being not so great a month overall. Either Jeff or I was sick the entire month. We each got 2 different colds, like back to back. It was a whole mess and I felt like I lost my entire January, but I did still do pretty good with my reading. So I read a total of 9 books that we're going to be talking about today, and then I'm going to be talking about one book I forgot to include in my December wrap-up. I don't know how, but I completely forgot to mention it. We're going to be talking about the unfinished series and the challenges and things and all that jazz, so let's get started. First up, I want to talk about Castle in the Clouds. This one is by Kristen Gear. So this one I read during December because it was set in like a snowy inn in like the Swiss Alps. It's supposed to be like a cozy mystery, and it was like during the holiday season around New Year's. I was very excited about it, but this one didn't really work that well for me. I was kind of like forcing myself to finish it. Like the ending was really good and I liked it. The narrating was like good, but it was very heavily accented. Almost too much. I did enjoy it, and it may just be the case of me trying to squeeze something in at the last minute in December that I just wasn't in the mood. I only gave this one 3 stars, sadly. It wasn't a bad book, it just wasn't something I think that's gonna stick with me. So basically this is set like I think in the Swiss Alps. There's an inn, there's a girl that works there that's like in training and she's learning like all of the ropes, and then there's like mystery and a little bit of murder and things that happen. So it was fun. So now we're gonna talk about my goals. In case you guys missed my goals video, I'll link it up here in the cards, but I have set things that I want to do every month. I did okay, but I didn't do great with it this month. So my goals are I want to read a book from a favorite narrator. On audio, I want to do a book from a favorite author. I want to do a retelling, new release, a standalone, and book from an unfinished series, or at least 2 books from an unfinished series. So I hit a few of those, so I'll mention them here as I'm going through all the books, but I didn't hit a ton of them. So the first thing that I read in January, I buddy read this with my friend Brittany, is Evermore by Sarah Holland. I did all of these except for one on audio, so I'll link the narrators down below, but this one is narrated by EILEEN Stevens. I read this one and Everless. This is a duology. It's set in a fantasy world where time is money. You can basically have your time stolen from you, I think through like taking it from your blood, or blood and time are somehow related. This fantasy world has kind of been set up this way, and you can like lose and I think maybe gain time through different actions. So it's got almost a dystopian vibe to it, but it's more heavily fantasy. So as a child, Jules was taught that the wicked alchemist stole the sorceress's heart, dooming the people to live and die by the time captured in their blood, and then it's preserved in their currency. So the rich thrive for centuries while the poor only live a few years. But anyway, you're following Jules as she's like traveling through this world and learning more about the magic system and the world and kind of falling in love and all that kind of stuff. It is really good. I really enjoyed it. I think I gave this one like a 3.75 stars. It was just under a 5-star. I enjoyed the narrator, but she wasn't amazing. The 4th book, however, was very, very good. Like, it was weird because it was kind of slow in the middle, but the ending totally made up for it and pushed it to a 4-star. So I would consider this probably a 4-star duology for me. I'm really excited to check out more from Sarah Holland because I think this was her debut novel. I really liked the ending of this series, and I feel like that's something that's not always done well. It was just different than what I expected, and I really enjoyed it. There's not a lot of romance in here. It has a lot about like friendship and loyalty and just all that kind of goodness. And I don't want to say too much because I went into it not knowing a lot, and I'm really glad I did. So that book does not fall into any of my categories, unfortunately. Then for my retelling and a standalone, I think I'm going to count this for both, I read Naomi Novik's Spinning Silver. I was very excited for this one. Originally, I was under the impression that this was adult, but I don't think it is. I think it's solidly YA. So this is supposed to be a retelling of Rumpelstiltskin. That was literally all I knew. And I knew that it was kind of like a loose retelling. I read Naomi Novik's Uprooted a few years ago and I absolutely loved it. Like, I'm pretty sure I gave it 5 stars. It was so beautiful. It had a good amount of romance in it, but not too much. There was like a magical woods and all that kind of stuff. So I was really excited for this one, but it's taken me forever to get to. So I did this one on audio as well. So Miriam is the daughter and granddaughter of two moneylenders, and her dad kind of has the inability to collect the debts that they need. Like, he's a little bit soft-hearted. He leaves their family on the edge of poverty. Miriam, hardening her own heart, goes out and basically decides to do his job for him, and she somehow gains the reputation that she is able to spin silver into gold. So basically there's like a fae creature that discovers this and hears this rumor about Miriam, and he goes to kind of like capture her or use her to do this for him. And it's got a little bit of like a Beauty and the Beast vibe to it almost. I was thinking it was going that direction, but there is very, very little romance in here. I was expecting there to be a little bit more, and that's kind of on me because I was kind of comparing it to Uprooted, and that's a totally different story. I didn't love this as much as I was wanting to. It was a 3.5 star. The writing is really beautiful. I will read more from Naomi Novik. A little bit let down by this one just because, I don't know, it was a little bit slow at parts. It jumped around a lot. You're following mostly Miriam, but there is another character you're following as well, and then at the end you're getting like even a couple more characters, and I didn't really feel like that was entirely necessary, and it can get confusing because some of the situations are a little bit similar, and I may have gotten a little bit lost at some point. So I enjoyed this, but I didn't really love it the way that I loved Uprooted, unfortunately. I would definitely still recommend checking it out, and the narrator was really, really good. And I had two books on my unfinished series requirement. One was Blood of Wonderland by Colleen Oakes, so this is the second in a Alice in Wonderland trilogy based on the background of the Red Queen. So you're following the Red Queen as a teenager and her life. So I can't say much about this one since it's a sequel. I will say that I think I only gave the first book like 3.5 stars, but I'm pretty sure I gave this one 4. I don't know if I was just not in the mood for the first book, but I really loved this one. Like, it made me want to reread the first one, and I'm kind of feeling like I was possibly gonna DNF the trilogy if I didn't love this one, but I really loved it. It was really good. So you're basically learning about the Red Queen and how she becomes the Red Queen, so I'm really scared for the ending of the next one. So you got a good villainous backstory in here. It's excellent, and I'm really pumped. I'm probably going to read the next one in February and finish this series off, and it goes really fast. On audiobook, this is narrated by Moira Quirk, who's really excellent, especially for this series. I really, really enjoyed it, and if you listen on a faster speed, it goes really fast because it's a very short book. So definitely want to check out more from Colleen as well. And it is similar to Heartless from Marissa Meyer, but it's still its own unique thing, and I love that it's a full trilogy. Then, total spontaneous moment. My friend Brittany, who also has a YouTube channel I'll link down below, decided to finally read Illuminae. She has picked it up a couple times and then hasn't carried on because it needed to be returned, or just she wasn't sure if she was gonna like it. And she got into it and then got really into it and was like asking me questions. And while this is one of my favorite books of all time, it's been like 3 years since I've read it and I couldn't remember all the details, so I decided to read it with her. I physically read it and did the audiobook once again. That is how I recommend reading this series. It is absolutely incredible because you get so much detail and things from the format in here, but the audiobook is full cast and has sound effects, and it's just really, really excellent. This is a sci-fi series, if you couldn't tell. So you're in the year 2575, and there are rival mega companies that are at war over a planet that's really just more of an ice speck. So there's people living on it, and there's all this fighting happening, and they basically have to flee so that they don't get killed. And so you're following this basically one ship for the most part, and everything in here is basically recounting the effects of what happened. So you're getting case files and someone transcripting videos and things like that, and people getting interviewed, and so it's really, really unique. It seems intimidating, but if you guys know of more books that have this kind of cool style, it doesn't have to be all like crazy, but unique formatting like this, like Night Film has something like this, and The Dead House has something like this. Even though I didn't love that book, I liked the formatting. And Why We Broke Up, I love books with unique formatting, and they're really hard to find, so hit me up with your recommendations. But this has a ragtag team of characters, it's got some romance, some friendship, it's just everything. It's so good. I can't recommend it enough. Highly recommend this for Galaxy-a-thon if you haven't read it, but please, if you can, read the physical book and do the audio. If you have to choose, I would suggest the physical book because there's so much cool stuff in here that you're just not going to get anywhere else. But if you can do both, it's the most unique reading experience you'll ever have. And this one is actually my least favorite in this trilogy, and it's still fantastic. So upon rereading, I gave it 5 stars. Then, also with my friend Brittany, I buddy read Grim Lovelies by Megan Shepherd. Finally got to this one. So excited because Megan Shepherd, The Madman's Daughter, is one of my favorite books ever, and so I want to read more from her. And I've only read, I think, one other thing. So this is a little bit different than what I was expecting. You're following Anouk, who lives in the human world. She is not a human. She has been transformed by a witch from a beast into a human, and she is considered a beastie and is not allowed to leave her house. So this is set in Paris. So this is really unique. I don't want to say too much more, but you're following these beasts that have been turned into humans, and they have a conflict that happens that they need to solve together. They're very like naive and young because they haven't been around very long, but they're all teenage in appearances, and they don't really remember much about being an animal or anything like that, and you're learning more about the witches. It's set in Paris. It's also got like a ragtag team. I thoroughly enjoyed this one. It does have a much younger YA vibe about it because the characters are kind of learning the world around them. They're a little bit more naive and young in their thought process, but I still really, really enjoyed it. I thought it was really, really fun. It has a countdown in here for something that's going to happen. I gave this 4 stars, really excited to read. The next book, not quite as dark as I was expecting it to be, which is totally fine. I know some people were saying that they thought that this was like a really dark read. I wouldn't think so. It wouldn't be one that I would save for the fall or anything like that. I love the Paris setting as well, so yay, 4 stars. And this one is narrated by Gabrielle Baker, and I'm putting this on my books by a favorite author. Next, I listened to Believe Me, which is a novella from the Shatter Me series. It's the last novella in the series, and this one's narrated by James Foohey. It's a very short audiobook. I love this because I absolutely love the Shatter Me series, and I love the characters in it. I love the character it's about. It's kind of a continuation a little bit. Is this a necessary book? Absolutely not. Are novellas supposed to be necessary? Not really. I don't think they are. That's the whole point of these like little quick short stories, is it's just for like the super fans. It was a lot sexier than I was expecting. Even though the books kind of have that theme in them in certain parts, this had a lot more. Like almost too much, but it was really good. It was just fun to be with all the characters again. But if you're not like a super fan, I wouldn't recommend this one because it doesn't really add a whole lot to the story, and you're not getting some things that I kind of want that I can't really tell you about because I'll spoil it. But I wound up giving this one, I think, a 3.5 stars. And then the last audiobook I read was Mr. Penumbra's 24-Hour Bookstore. I read this actually for my 5-star reads TBR, which I'll link that video up here in the cards as well, that I'm doing right now for February. I read the last 2 days of January. I wasn't expecting to get through it so fast, so I threw it in here. So this is by Robin Sloan. I can't remember the narrator, but he was excellent, so I'll link him down here. I read Sourdough by Robin Sloan a few years ago and absolutely loved it. It's one of my favorite books ever. I know I keep saying that, but it's true. So I picked this one up as one of the books that I was hoping would be a 5-star read for the year. My friend Claire really loved it. I really enjoyed this. It was very fun, and it had everything I want from Robin Sloan. It stayed solidly at a 4-star for me, but I highly recommend it. So this is about a young man that is kind of out of work. He does a lot of like tech work and website planning and coding. There's kind of a recession happening in San Francisco, and he gets a job at this 24-hour bookstore, and there's all this weird quirky things about the bookstore. There are people that come in and check out books. They like kind of check them out like they're a library, and then they return them, and then they're not actually selling a lot of books, so he knows it's kind of a front for something, and he kind of has to unsolve the mystery. You've got a lot of quirky fun characters in here. It's really fast paced. It's very unique. It's very weird. So I had a great time with this one. If you like books about books, I highly recommend it. The ending was decent as well. Wasn't like my absolute favorite, but it was really fun. So a solid 4 stars. So then the only book I physically read this month, so proud of myself, is Lord of Shadows by Cassandra Clare. Another one on my unfinished series list. I've been meaning to read this for at least 2 years. It's just so huge. Although I do read her books somewhat fast, I didn't read this one super fast. I have a weird relationship with Cassandra Clare. I do not suggest reading this series without reading her other series. I feel like the entire Shadowhunters world goes in order everything kind of interconnects and you miss things and you won't enjoy them as much if you don't know what's happening, especially with this one. So I highly recommend reading all the other ones first. I know that's intimidating, but I really don't think that you're going to enjoy this trilogy if you haven't read the other books, because you'll be very confused. So they're all separate and they follow different characters, but it's all set in the same world, so you need all the information about the world, and there's still some of our other characters that you've met. So I really liked Lady Midnight. I think I gave it 4 stars. One of my favorites. I didn't love this one as much as I was wanting. I didn't cry like everybody thought that I might. I really enjoyed it, but it felt too long. And I understand why it's this long, and I understand that a lot of people just want to be with the characters for this long. I don't know if this was because it was the first physical book that I read and I was like getting discouraged that I wasn't finishing it very fast. I still had fun and I still liked it. I just wasn't like, I was waiting for some things to kind of really grip me like they did with Lady Midnight and Tales from the Shadowhunter Academy, and they didn't really. So I am going to read Queen of Air and Darkness. I'm debating on not reading Chain of Gold, although that follows characters I'm like even more interested in. So who knows? I feel like I'm in this web and I can't get out of it now. I think I gave this one 3.5 stars just purely on an enjoyment level. The ending was really good, especially like the last 30 pages. I just wanted a little bit more from it. Not sure what I wanted, but I wanted something more. So I will continue on with the next one, which is even larger. Really proud of myself. I haven't read a book this big in forever. So 3.5 stars. Okay, so I don't think that I read a book from a favorite narrator this month. I didn't read a new release this month, sadly, but those were the only 2 that I didn't hit out of the 6 goals that I would like to hit every month. So I thought that was pretty decent. Overall, I had a really good reading month. Like, I really enjoyed everything I read. Nothing was like terrible, or I don't think I'm gonna unhaul anything, so that's really good. And then, so the last thing I wanted to talk about is my unfinished series goal. I want to talk about this in every video. I have, as of right now, I think 45 unfinished series. I want to cut this in half by the end of the year, which means I need to finish at least 2 series every month. Now, I have a ton of series and duologies and things that I only have 1 book left of, so I feel like this is totally doable. But the hard part is going to be that I can't start too many new series, or this number will just kind of keep going back and forth. I didn't get it done for January, but I did read Lord of Shadows and the Queen of Hearts book that are part of a series, so that's kind of helping with the goal. I just didn't complete one. So I want you guys to kind of hold me accountable, remind me to talk about it, because I want to cut this number in half. That includes anything new that I start as well, other than books that don't have the next book out yet. I think I only have like 1 series on the list that isn't like completely out. That's what's happening. Let me know down below what you guys read for January, what your favorite reads were, how many unfinished series do you have. Let's chat. Do you like any of the books I've read? Have you added any of them to your TBR? We'll just have a whole conversation about it. Don't forget to follow me at The Bright Side Girl for more bookish and non-bookish content, and I'll see you guys next time on The Bright Side.